It'll blow the mind of everybody listening, but it should challenge them to think differently in their companies. And that is, throughout the course of human history, 99% of all new ideas have been based on someone else's thinking or something someone's found in nature. So the reality is a limited number of ideas are what you talked about a few moments ago, and that is they're totally original ideas. Optical lenses and eyeglasses were totally original ideas. Fire, probably the first time, was an original idea. The wheel was an original idea. But today what happens is we're way better off to find something remarkable and use it as the starting point for rethinking our business. And things come together. So timing, of course, is important. Imagine this. Most people who are listening, I'm sure, use Uber to get a ride or Uber Eats. Was Uber or Uber Eats started by folks who understood the taxi cab business? No, it was started by two friends who were in Paris, France in the winter.
Your business's success depends on relationships. Relationships with customers, relationships with employees, and relationships with stakeholders. What do they all have in common? They're all human. Because no matter if your business is B2B or B2C, it's really H to H, human to human. Welcome to the Human Connection Podcast. I'm your host, Carl Ponto. Each week, I'll bring you stories, insights, and practical advice from experts that you can apply to your growing company and daily life. This week, I'm excited to connect with Alan Gregerman. Alan is an internationally renowned authority on business strategy, innovation, and the hidden potential of grown-ups, who has been called one of the most original thinkers in business today and the Robin Williams of business consulting. As the president and chief innovation officer of Washington, D.C.-based consultancy VentureWorks, a best-selling author, sought-after keynote speaker, and community volunteer, he focuses on helping companies and organizations unlock the genius in all of their people in order to deliver the most compelling value to their customers. He is also the founder of Passion for Learning, an award-winning nonprofit that teaches girls technology skills as a key to life and career success. His work has been featured in over 250 leading publications and media outlets in the U.S. and in other countries, including the Wall Street Journal, NPR, CNN, the Economic Times, Business Week, Dagens Industry, and Fast Company, and his writing, speaking, and teaching has informed and hopefully inspired over 700,000 people. His new book, The Wisdom of Ignorance: Why Not Knowing Can Be the Key to Innovation in an Uncertain World, provides a powerful formula for making a difference in a world moving super fast. And a fun fact, in March of 2021, he had a rare and remarkable stroke and lost the ability to see and speak. It happened during dinner with his family and was a very clear reminder that we all live in an uncertain world. Fast forward, and after 18 months of speech, vision, and occupational therapy, he is doing great, traveling, climbing mountains, kayaking, walking his dogs, and speaking with audiences around the world. Congrats on recovering from your stroke, and welcome to the Human Connection Podcast.
Oh, thanks, Carl. Delighted to be here.
So I love the premise of your new book, and I think it's so timely with what companies are struggling with these days, because everyone is so overwhelmed with information, and they often don't know how to come up with new ideas or kind of break away from relying on this data that they've collected. But oftentimes, as we kind of mentioned before we started recording, that it's not always the right data, or it's not the most accurate data. And so I'd love to hear more about your ideas on how not being as well informed can actually be a benefit to being more innovative.
Okay, great. Yeah, so I like to think in really simple terms that if I know a lot about something, I can make it better. I understand all the features of it. I understand how we support it. And so I can tweak things at the margin and figure out how to make something more remarkable. But the reality is the world is changing super fast. It's presumptuous for everybody listening and all of us to imagine that 5 years from now, the exact same skills and expertise we have are likely to be as relevant as they are today. So I like to think about the notion that I actually can create a breakthrough if I don't know a lot about something, because I'm not so wedded to it, and I can look at it with fresh eyes and think differently. And your point about data is really important. The reality is the most important data is our connections we have right now with our customers and employees and partners, not data we may have collected over a long time, because that data might be based on our expertise about what we did in the past that was really good, and it's not as focused on the things we need to understand in the future.
And I think it's something that with how fast, like I said, how fast things change, and how when your companies are currently like the way you see a lot of companies hiring for talent is they look at like, what are your skills right now? But that skill set is not necessarily going to be as relevant, like you said, in 5 years or even like a couple of years. Whereas if you're bringing people with the exact same skill set or with a exact same or similar like established experiences, then you're not going to have the diversity in thinking or the diversity of like perspective that could lead to real innovations, because you're hiring people with a certain background or a certain skill set that is the way things used to be done, or like the quote unquote best practices a year ago or like now. Whereas you want to be thinking about like, well, what's the culture fit, or who people we can bring in that are going to be have the right way of thinking or the right kind of personalities and the cultural fit, so that we can be prepared for what's next to help drive what's next by bringing in people with different ways of thinking or approaching the problems that we're struggling with right now.
Oh, I think you're exactly right. So think about this. We tend to hire more people like us. It's kind of like the Austin Powers movies. So we tend to try and hire mini-me's. The idea is they have roughly the same skills. We'll develop them in what we know and make them way more impressive. The reality is we do exactly as you said. We need to hire a broader group of people, and it's absolutely fine to hire people who know very, very little about what we do, because they're going to approach it very differently. What's important is they've been somewhere else, and maybe they've been somewhere else where they do things really, really well. We need to honor that and be interested in that. But most importantly, we need people who will ask questions, push us to be better, connect us with the world outside our building, because most of us rarely leave the building, and challenge us to be remarkable in hitting a target, as you're suggesting, that's really about the future. It's not about today. We can be great today, and that's awesome. But this Monday is maybe not so different than next Monday. But after a while, the Mondays are going to be real different, and we've got to get there.
And so what are the ways that you've worked with companies on building this or changing this mindset in the leadership and making them not be so shackled by the way they've always done things? I imagine you have some amazing stories working with your clients in this regard.
Yeah, so the interesting thing is, for everybody listening, probably think back to your kind of college or high school statistics class, and remember when they talked about the normal distribution, which was the bell curve. And so at one end of the bell curve are like the best performers, okay? Those are companies that understand the need to innovate consistently, the need to have new products out there. They're the Apples of the world. There's a new variation of the iPhone or the Apple Watch or whatever, the iPod or the iPad every single year. And it's an attempt to kind of keep up with where the market's going. It's the folks at Amazon who are regularly thinking about what are new things that we need to offer based on the input customers are giving us. At the tail end of the bell curve are the folks who are really messing up. And the reality is, if they don't do something different, they're likely to go out of business. And so we find our customers are either people who already get it, or people who are in a kind of desperate situation. They say, okay, we've got to be more innovative. Can you give us some ideas how to do that? And the first thing we do is we say, yeah, we're actually going to take you out of the office and explore a world filled with new ideas, so that you start thinking about the fact that there's a lot of energy and a lot of new ideas out there that could be the starting point for your thinking differently.
I think it's interesting what you just said there about how just a matter of getting out of the office, physically getting out of the office or getting out of your house or just changing your physical location can be a catalyst for bigger innovations on a business level. Because I think so often people think, oh, to be innovative in my industry, I have to do something completely new and different that no one's ever done anywhere ever before. When in reality, so many of the biggest innovations are taking something that someone's already doing in one area, a different or industry, and just applying it to the one you're in, or taking part of that idea and transposing it over. But because no one's done that specific combination of like products or execution or experience, it comes across as really innovative, and it is, but it's not as big of a shift that people think they need to be or need to make in order to be considered really innovative. And so just getting out of their office and going to see something new and changing their location and experiencing something different could be the spark of innovation, where you see something that someone else is doing somewhere else and realize, oh, if we did it that way with what we're doing, that could be the game changer we've been looking for, to go from one end of the bell curve to the other.
Well, so you're exactly right. But here's something that I don't want to say it'll blow the mind of everybody listening, but it should challenge them to think differently in their companies. And that is, throughout the course of human history, 99% of all new ideas have been based on someone else's thinking or something someone's found in nature. So the reality is, a limited number of ideas are what you talked about a few moments ago. And that is, they're totally original ideas. Optical lenses and eyeglasses were totally original ideas. Fire, probably the first time, was an original idea. The wheel was an original idea. But today what happens is, we're way better off to find something remarkable and use it as the starting point for rethinking our business. And things come together. So timing, of course, is important. Imagine this. Most people who are listening, I'm sure, use Uber to get a ride, or Uber Eats. Was Uber or Uber Eats started by folks who understood the taxi cab business? No, it was started by two friends who were in Paris, France in the winter, couldn't find a cab. But what they understood was, and the 99% rule really holds true here, was that GPS technology, or GIS technology, now existed and was pretty darn good. So we could find somebody, a global position, that had a car, and somebody else who needed a ride, and bring those people together. And that would be better than a traditional taxi cab in which you stand at the corner and simply wait. So the reality is, people do remarkable things because they take ideas that already exist, not because they come up with totally original ideas.
And I think just being aware of that is such a weight off people's shoulders, because they, from the outside, after you see someone do something innovative that changes the game, it seems like such a profound thing. But when you kind of break it down into the steps it took for them to come up with that innovation, like you said, they were on vacation in Paris and had an experience where, if they'd just been stuck in their office, like in a boardroom, thinking like, be innovative, that isn't how it works. If you get out there and you experience other things, then you'll find that inspiration that seems, in hindsight, such a brilliant thing, but it was like, it's already out there, just not connected in a way that anyone else had connected before, or at least hadn't executed the connection properly to make it work.
Right. So think about it. We have a notion in organizations that we need to be innovative. So we get like our smartest people in a room, and we give them a whiteboard or a sheet of paper, and we say, okay, come up with an out of the box idea. It's as though they come to work every day and they're just trying to be mediocre. It's not like we can turn on that part of our brain that's creative. We need stimulation to do that. And so that's why getting out in the world really makes a difference. And when we get out in the world, we see ideas. So most of the people who are listening probably have an Apple device or an Android device, and they watch content or they listen to podcasts or whatever the case is. And so we look at an iPad or an iPhone and we say, God, these guys are geniuses. Well, the iPhone and the iPad are based on a device that many people never heard of because they're too young for it, but their parents had. And that's called the Sony Walkman, or I'm the father of daughters, a Sony Walk person. And so that was 1979. Apple didn't have a device for playing content wherever you went till 2004. And the folks at Sony, 1979, they were building on the transistor radio. That was Texas Instruments in 1948. So the reality is, people who do remarkable things actually pay attention to the world around them, and then they adapt what they discover to be more remarkable.
Yeah, and I know the iPad, when the iPad came out, everyone was like, "Oh my gosh, this is so like brilliant!" But there's already there had existed kind of the similar tablet devices by Microsoft, but they just weren't. It weren't like the ease of use was different. And like Apple did it like better, but it wasn't like it was a super innovative idea, like a brand new thing. And our existing products were out there, but they adapted the basically the iPhone and like the iPod to the tablet, because they had that, they saw that like that structure could be applied to it, but it wasn't that it was the like kind of handheld computer tablet thing wasn't a brand new idea when they did it. So it's taking existing ideas and combining them with something that hasn't necessarily been combined before, and that's what really makes it brilliant. And so, and like again, the getting out and like, if a beige boardroom is not where you're going to find innovative ideas or find that solutions, like go out to like museums or go out and experience, like get out of your normal routine, or even just like, I know some of the things I've read in the past, like just take a different route. If you commute, like take a different route to and from the office.
Right.
Don't just rely on the same route all the time. And you'll might see something on your way to work that goes, oh, that's a cool idea. I haven't seen that before, like a piece of artwork or some sort of like other ad that could be the catalyst you've been looking for. But if you just stay in your routines and in your same box physically, your mental situation is not going to fare any better.
Yeah. And so, but the other thing we have to do is we actually have to get out and pay attention.
Yeah.
You know, what I worry about, I see lots of people out and they're on their phones all the time, you know, and so the world is passing them by. Cool ideas are passing them by. They walk by museums, they walk by new businesses that have great business models. They walk by old successful businesses that have great business models, and they don't even lift up their heads to pay attention. The reality is, if we're going to create a breakthrough, we got to pay attention to the world around us. We also have to pay attention to what our customers want. So I always say, we could be awesome today, but we don't talk to our customers enough, and we assume that what we offer is awesome for them as well. The reality, and everybody says to me, I come in and they go, well, you know, our customers love us. And I go, they love you because they haven't seen anything better yet. You know, they don't love you because you provided the greatest value to them. They love you because for now you provide great value. Somebody else is ready to eat your lunch, and they're paying attention to the world around them and creating a new business model. And if you don't do that, you're going to be disrupted by other folks, and your customers are going to leave in a minute.
Yeah, and I think that key of listening to what your customers actually want and keeping those relationships going is important. Also, when you talked about being aware of, I think there's the not being on your phone all the time is a great example. But there's I can't remember exactly what the phrase, but like the value of letting yourself being bored once in a while can help you come up with other ideas, because when your brain has to fill in the gaps or come up with like an entertain itself, you come up with some really interesting ideas. And so having either like going on a walk and then not listening to something, or doing something where you're out and about where normally you'd be on your phone, but forcing yourself to be not have your nose buried in a screen can actually be a really important exercise for ideation and being innovative, because when you let your brain fill in the gaps of your experience itself by paying attention, or by not having a constant input, you can come up with some really interesting ideas. And I think that's the art of being bored has been lost ever since social media and mobile devices, because it's so easy to find content to fill time, but just like blocking out time to sit and just let your own mind wander or be unstimulated, and forcing your brain to stimulate itself could be a really valuable practice that, combined with getting out of your routines, getting out of the office and experiencing things, can be a great petri dish for innovation that so many people have forgotten that they have in their arsenal right now.
Yeah, no, I agree. Now, I would argue, of course, that get out and be bored someplace that stimulates you in ways that are different than work. So get out. And then the other thing, so let's play on the idea, because it's vital, of the human connection, and that is get out and connect with strangers. People in particular who are different than you and see the world differently than you. Go to conferences that may not exactly be about what you do for work, but where people are going to think about other ideas that are going to spark your thinking. Go to movies that you might not have thought of going to. Go to concerts. Go, as you said earlier, go to museums, whether it's a modern art museum or a science museum, and try and think about how somebody came up with a breakthrough in the past, or how somebody's come up with a new idea in the future. And so challenge yourself to be in places that are filled with ideas, so that if you're bored, they start to spark your stimulation and start to get you imagining what's possible in your life or in your business.
Yeah, I think it doesn't make any sense if you go out into the world to experience new things and you still have your face buried in the phone and aren't really paying attention, not being present in the new environment. And yeah, I think I love that the what you mentioned about just go out and talk to strangers. And I think that's one of the things a habit I've built for myself is just a great way to start a conversation with someone is just to compliment them on something they're wearing or some choice they made about how they look, not just like their physical appearance, but it's like, oh, like the way you dyed your hair, like that shirt, like those glasses, and just give them a compliment, because then you can start this conversation and you might have a great, insightful, inspiring conversation with someone you might have never connected with if you hadn't just opened up and asked and started with a compliment. And but doing it that way, it's very rare you'll find someone who won't be willing to chat for a few minutes. If you start with a nice, simple compliment that is honest and pure and uplifting, because that's what people are looking for from interaction. So this has been an amazing conversation, and I thank you so much for connecting with me today, Alan. If you enjoyed this episode of the Human Connection Podcast, please like it, leave a review, and share it. If you'd like to connect with myself or Alan, check out the links in the show notes. And remember, no matter if your business is B2B or B2C, it's really H to H, human to human. Happy connecting.
Thank you.